I realized something when I woke up this morning. What I'm overwhelmed by is exactly what I wanted. I hear the sound of takeoff. 3, 2, 1, launch. 3, 2, 1, launch. 3, 2, 1, launch. 3, 2, 1, launch. It's your time. Adulting ain't easy, even when you're happy. The work to maintain it can still make you crazy. Ciao! Adulting is nuts. Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Again, it's your girl Dage. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to my life. Today, I wanted to talk about transition, right? Again, just to recap, I moved to DC because I started an urban teachers program, and the choices were to go to DC, Dallas, or Baltimore. So I chose to go to DC because it was just something that I knew I was supposed to do, something I knew where I was supposed to be. And so, yeah. And so, when I moved to DC, right before, so I kind of knew that I was moving to DC since January. So January of 2021, I knew that I was moving in August of that year. And so as the months were going past, I'm excited, just like excited to go. And in the last month, like, what's the month before August? July came, and I just got really sad. And I was just like, I'm really moving, like I'm really leaving my family. I'm leaving being able to have access to my home church. And yeah, I'm going to basically have a new beginning kind of thing. And yeah, I was excited about it, but deep inside, I knew that it would be like an emotional, just roller coaster for me. And I knew that it would be uncomfortable. And I have many uncomfortable seasons in my life as I walk with God, but like I wasn't ready for where I was. I also want to talk about the testimony of moving as well, because I want to tell the goodness of God. I want you guys to know that if you're believing God, if God is telling you to move, and you know that he's calling you to live somewhere else, move outside your family's home, or if you're just praying like, God, I need more space, because I transitioned I went to Lincoln University, and that was my last year, my senior year. But senior year, I did all virtual, and I did it from home because of COVID, and I chose to stay home. And so for that whole year, I was living with my family in like this room that was kind of like small a little bit, but it was because like I was going back and forth to college. So it was like, yeah. So yeah, I was just kind of in this cluttered space. And yeah, there were moments I'm like, I want to move. I want to get out of here. Like, I just want to have my own space and be me. And all the things we say when we're growing up, and we're like, okay, I need my own space, and I want to be me in my own space and do what I want to do. And so, yeah. And so like, that was like prayers. I feel like sometimes I didn't even say it to God, but it was something that was a desire in my heart that God honored. The word says, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. And so that was a desire that I had, and it was something that aligned with God's will for my life, but I just had to wait for the right timing for that. And so throughout me about to move, I went through this period where God began to confront different childhood traumas that I faced in my home, and just faced growing up with like people that I really cared about, but people that I felt like I set expectations for, and they didn't reach them. And so I began to confront different things that hurt me, and God and Holy Spirit began to tell me, like, you need to go talk to your mom, you need to go talk to your dad, you need to go talk to this person, you need to express what you've been holding in for a while. Like, you're not moving out of this house until you heal from what happened, right? In my prior video, I talked about just one traumatic, like, childhood trauma that I faced, and I went through it alone. And so in my home, I faced a lot of depression and suicidal thoughts, and just things. I did it by myself because I was so sad about, what happened to me. So God began to walk me through those things and heal me from them through conversation, through releasing it to people that, after I released it to God, he led me to have conversations with people, and those conversations birth healing. So I want to encourage you that if God is leading you, Holy Spirit is plucking at you and telling you, like, you need to speak to this person about this, and you have to understand that the conversation isn't to point the finger. The conversation isn't for somebody to apologize for you. The conversation is literally for you to release it, literally for you to have a conversation, because the truth shall make you free. And sometimes we need truth, and sometimes we need to communicate, and we understand that when we open our mouths about the different things that we're suffering alone to our family members, they begin to open their mouths and understand that there's a safe place where we don't have to live and act like everything's okay, and it's not. It's good to walk through it together than walk through it alone and seem like everything's fine and people are smiling. It makes you feel like the sadness that you're carrying and the things that you're carrying is not that serious, because you're like, I'm supposed to be okay, so something's wrong with me if I'm not okay, right? And that was a truth that I began to believe, and it was something that God had to tell me, like, no, you need to talk this out. You need to express this to your mother. You need to express this to your father. You need to express this to your sisters, or whatever the case may be, because God was like, I want to heal you before I move you. And so through those months of knowing that I was about to move, those were different things I had to walk through and confront some different things, some different traumas and hurts that I was just feeling in my heart, because I'm realizing that God does an internal work before he moves you into this new place externally. So many things that we're wanting and asking God for, it takes something internal that he wants to do inside of you before he moves you, right? Because the new you, the new thing he does in you, is going to be able to handle the very thing you're asking for. And so, yeah, I know that kind of went left, but that was just my testimony. And so, right, kind of like a couple months went on, I knew that I was moving to DC. However, my bank account, it didn't really look like it. I ain't gonna lie, it didn't look like it at all. But I knew that I was moving, and I knew that it was God's will that I moved. So I was like, well, God, if you be God, come forth now. And so, yeah, I had some finances. I didn't have a job at the time. I did have one job. I was working as an undergraduate teaching assistant at Lincoln. So that was the money I had. And I had some, some refund check money, and I had some other money coming in. But at the end of the day, I knew it wasn't enough to get me where. At the end of the day, I needed a miracle, right? But I knew that I was moving. I also had this car. Jesus, just ask some of my friends about this Nissan Altima that I had. It just wasn't good. And so, yeah, it was just like, it was getting me from point A to point B, but it wasn't about to get me to point C, okay? And so I was just like, I need a new car. So, place to stay in a new car, bank account not looking like that. And so one day I went to church. I was excited about moving. One day I went to church, and my overseer, he prophesied to me, and he was like, God's going to bless you with housing and a new car before you move to DC. I was like, praise God, I was just like, if he said it, he will do it. If he said it, hey, he will do it. And that's just how I was. And so I started believing God, like, okay, God, like, you about to do the dang thing. Show yourself. And so, yeah, but like, I was waiting on it, and I was like, okay, God, he gonna do it. And my bank account kept looking the same, and I was like, he gonna do it. He gonna do it. And then it got silent, and I was kind of like nervous, but I was like, God, this is your will, so it's your bill. Hey. And so, it all happened the way he said it was going to happen. So now again, we going back to July. I knew I was moving, but my heart started feeling like really sad because like I was kind of nervous because I really didn't know. I just knew like, dang, I'm about to move away from comfort. You know, I'm about to move away from something that's familiar, and I don't know what's going to be over there. All I know is I'm going to school, I'm going to work. I believe God for all these things that's going to just flourish over here in this new place, right? Child. And so my 6-month reflection is basically, I realized that and for the financial thing, God, you know, I had a certain amount of money saved up to get here. And I just believe God that like, okay, when this money that I saved up runs out, God gonna maintain me. He gonna help me. And he not gonna bless me with things that he's not gonna, you know, help me provide for. And so, yeah, that was kind of just my thought. Like, I left by faith. I got here by faith. And then I realized that it was time for me to walk by faith in the new thing that I knew God gave me and blessed me with. And I knew that I was in his will doing it. And so, yeah, what I'm realizing and what this whole YouTube video is supposed to be about is the new place is going to require a new you. I moved and I began to work a 9 to 3:30, well, 8:30 to 3:30. And then after that, I had class from 5:30 to 8:30 on Mondays to Thursdays. This is a life I had to adjust to, right? Like I knew I signed up for it, but some things you start disciplining yourself when you actually get there. And so certain things I started doing to help me was meal prepping, like cooking for myself, and like really learning how to plan and maximize my time because I had lesson plans to do, I had homework to do, and I'm a new teacher, so I'm trying to figure out different ways to make sure that I'm presenting the information to my students correctly. And I kind of just transitioned and I just was like, what is this? Like, I was like, God, what is this? No, seriously, God, what is this? Like, I couldn't understand. Like, this is not what I thought it would be. Like, this is very uncomfortable, very unfamiliar. I'm doubting if I should even be in this room because I didn't go to school to be a teacher. What am I doing? Like, and I remember going to my new job for orientation, and I just remember feeling myself shrinking. You know, I felt like I wasn't being my full self because I was worried about the perception of people. I also just felt like I didn't belong. And I felt like, you know, like I'm here to learn. And like I'm not really prepared for this. So really, I don't really have anything to say in meetings and things like that. And totally just wasn't the truth. I really had to think myself out of that and really tell myself, like, if God sent me here, then he prepared me for it. And he's equipping me for everything that he's called me to do. Because remember, this step that I took was only training for the bigger picture and the bigger impact that I wanted to make in education. And so this is training, but don't sleep while training, right? Don't take the training as something that you just like do when you're waiting for this big moment to arrive somewhere. You're waiting for this big moment to arrive where God has said you're going to be. And it's like, don't discount this season though, because this season qualifies you for the next and it gets you there. And things you learn here, you're going to need there, right? So it was all about the approach and the perception of what you're doing. Like some things that helped me like in my transition was doing like self-check-ins, journaling, really just talking to myself and talking to God about how I was feeling and talking to friends that I could trust. I also, when I moved, I started this journey in therapy. And so, like, I was never against therapy. I just thought that I didn't need it, honestly. And that was probably just pride and I don't know. I just felt like I've been through so many things and I survived many things and I felt like God had healed me from them. Like I felt like God had brought me through them and I felt like they didn't affect me. But then I realized that there was still some things left in me that had to be worked through. And, you know, maybe I should do therapy too, because I had this moment where I just was crushed and something just uncomfortable. Okay, Deja, just be honest. Okay, I went through a breakup when I moved, and so that was hard as well. Very hard, because it was hard to let go of something that like I wanted to be a part of, but God was like, nope. And it's like, dang, what do you do when God is like, nope, and you don't even understand why? Like, you be like, God, well, why couldn't it work? Like, why couldn't it work for me? Don't trust God for my husband, and just realize that it just wasn't the time for me. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a wife. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be a wife. It doesn't really mean that I'm not worth it. It really just means it's not time. And that's a hard truth to believe sometimes. Like, dang, it's not time. Therapy, I went through that breakup, and it showed me that my foundation and my happiness was coming from the relationship more than it used to be set on God. And so when that ended, I was crushed, like crushed, crying, just, it was bad. But I realized, like, okay, all these other emotions came up. And I realized that before I had got in relationship with who I was with, and before that, I was working on myself. I was healing. Remember, like, you know, before I said I was moving, God was taking me through this healing process and discovering myself. So all the work that I was working on myself, it kind of, the intention wasn't on that anymore. It was on this relationship that I was building. And I realized, like, after that was taken away, God was like, we picking back up right from where we started. Like, this ended. The enemy wanted me to think like everything is over. I got to start from scratch with Jesus. I got to come back. No. God's like, I just want to pick up right where we left off. The healing, the discovering you, me showing you your purpose, those different things. Let's just pick up from where we left off, Deja, before you got distracted. And I had to be okay with that truth that, you know, I did get distracted. And God is like, no, if I didn't send it and it's not in my time, and then it's a distraction. I don't care how good he look. I don't care how good you think he is. No. And sometimes I'm like, God, you saying no. And I mean, I still got to say yes and be okay with that. And just move on and trust you. Hallelujah. And so, yeah, I went to therapy, and therapy is really helping me. Like, child, things is coming up that I'm like thankful, because as a teacher, I really think therapy is important, because teaching is a work of heart and is a work of like pouring out. You know, you have to show up every day basically filled up. And I'm glad that I know Jesus so that I don't have to show up empty. But I'm also glad that I'm showing up healed, so that when my students need healing, or my students want to talk through some things that are going on in their life, I'm able to help them from a healed place and not a hurt place, right? I'm able to help them from a perspective like, I know how that feels, but you know, you can get through this. There's an other side to this. This is not the end. But if you haven't overcame or healed or gone through anything yourself, how can you take some kids somewhere you haven't been? And so that's something that I'm like, I want to continue to develop and be my best self, so that I can impact my students to be their best selves. Like, you can't take people somewhere you haven't been. And so I'm glad that God is, you know, taking me through so that I can lead others as well, which is my students. And I love them so much. And so I already talked about cooking and meal prepping. Like, that was something I had to do. And of course I have a planner, and I just plan out, like, depending on my like assignments that I have for school, like I plan out monthly, I try to, and then I try to take it like week by week to do my assignments and like make time. And honestly, this is something I'm still working on. Like, I want to be honest, like sometimes I'm consistent and then sometimes I'm not. And those weeks when I fall off and I'm just like, dang, like I should have planned, I realize like, dang, this is something that holds me together. Like, structure is something that's holding me together. So I have to be consistent and understand that if I put the work in now and planning, then it will help me later, right? So that I don't have to be trying to rush to get things done and rush and be like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? It's like, no, I already planned for this. And so that's something I'm still working on, but just organizing my life, because I'm going somewhere and I'm already somewhere that's demanding much of me. And so I have to make sure that I'm putting my energy in the right places. And so that's what I've been praying about. Like, God, this is somewhere you sent me. These things that I'm doing, it is a lot, but I know that I can manage it with your strength. So can you show me what I should do first? Can you lead my day? I surrender this day to you. This is how I'm starting my days off, because I'm like, dang, I got so much to do. And sometimes we write to-do lists, and then at the end of the day, we're so frustrated or we're so disappointed in ourselves because we didn't didn't get everything done on our list, but what if you got everything that you needed to get done for God today? That make a plus right there. And so working with God and understanding like, okay, God sent me here. This place that I'm at is God ordained, which means I have to do it with God. God doesn't want you to do it alone. He wants you to do it with him. And I talk about that in my book. Let me just put that in there, because y'all might as well just go get this book. Praise God. And so, you gotta support yourself, because look, ain't nobody really gonna support you until you support you. So sometimes you just gotta promote you. Keep promoting you. Keep promoting you. Hallelujah. And so, another thing that was hard for me was like the shift in the convenience and the access that I had to my church. My church is in Philadelphia. I go to Emmanuel Christian Center. I already said that. But it's in Philadelphia, and I had moved to the DMV. And so virtual experience is not really the same as the experience you get at church. And I also realized, like, I always went to church Wednesdays and Sundays, and now it's like, dang, I gotta go virtually, right? It was hard for me. It really was hard. And I felt like I wasn't always around my community, my home church. So I just started feeling a little disconnected, because I just was like, dang, like I'm really out here by myself. And yeah, I just kind of was sad, because it was different. And I was just like, you know what, God, like this is hard for me, And so I'm like, well, God, if I'm not going to be able to always come to church in person, then I'm gonna have to pray that you meet me here. The same presence I felt at church is going to have to be the same presence that live in this house, because I can't make it without you. I need your presence. I need your word. I need your strength. And so that same strength and power that I was feeling at church, surrounded by folk, it was time. I'm like, God, well, you're going to have to live here. You live at my church, and you're going to live in this house too. I'm going to build an altar. So I'm going to worship, and I'm going to praise, and I'm going to read my word, and I'm going to encourage myself until something changes, because it need to be a shift over here. I need to feel Jesus. And so that's what happened. I kept pushing, fasting. I was praying like, God, I'm going to need you. And he came through. And so we thank God for that. And I also, started going to like different churches, even in the DMV, and yeah, that's been great. And I've been being blessed by those, and I'm realizing that God's people is everywhere, and I be trying the spirit by the spirit, and it's been going well. And so God is definitely helping me. But not just that, I was a member at my church, I also am a leader, and so I lead the youth dance ministry, like I said. So I had to adjust. I couldn't always make it home to teach in person, so I had to adjust and learn, like, okay, I might have to teach virtually, and now I have to delegate to the team that I have chosen, and I have to trust them, and I have to say, like, oh, can you lead practice, and can you do this, and can you do this? And I believe God is showing me leadership skills in that as well, because before I had a team, it was just me, and I was doing everything. And God is like, okay, now here's your team, and I'm going to show you how to trust your team and delegate to your team, because I'm still calling you to lead this ministry. Because whatever it's supposed to teach me and whatever it's supposed to birth in me is going to be great. And so I just have to stay and continue to push and adjust when needed, and understand that just because I'm not there and can't always show up physically doesn't mean that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, because God sent me somewhere, and he's still requiring me to do what he's called me to do and serve at my church, no matter if it's inconveniencing me. And that's what I realized. Like, sometimes God assigns us to things, and then when he moves us or shifts us, we think, okay, it's time to put that down, time to do something else. And God is like, no, when you were serving and you lived in Philly, it was a little bit more convenient, but now let me see if you can serve and it's inconveniencing you, and now you have to put more of a sacrifice. Let me see if you'll still serve, right? And so I love my students, and I love what I do, and it's something that, like, it's just a joy I get when I teach. It's a joy I get when I choreograph for them and make up steps and just allow them to minister and just to see their growth. It's just a joy that I have. And so I'm so thankful that, even in discomfort and inconvenience, I didn't move, right? And I stayed in place. And so, yeah, and I'm really learning. What helped me with that is being able to start my own devotions, right? Understanding, like, I need Jesus, right? So I need to talk to him every day. Like, the same way that I eat is the same way I'm going to get up and pray. It's the same way. And even when I didn't feel like praying, I had to keep praying, right? And that's what I realized, like, worship and prayer And just those different things really put deposits in the spirit, and you're able to withdraw at any time. Oh, I need strength today. Oh God, I need a word. And it be right there because you are now habitually like walking with him. And you're doing it, and it's a habit. It's not something that you just do when trouble comes, but it's something that you're doing because it's like, God, I need you every day. And I'm realizing like I want to walk with you, and to walk with you and to walk closely and intimate with you requires another level of sacrifice, requires another level of devotion, requires another level where I don't get in devotion and I don't get in prayer and I'm trying to rush the spirit and I'm trying to rush worship because I got something to do. No, now I have to be intentional. And now because my schedule, I'm doing so much, I still have to make room for God. You don't try to add God into your schedule. You have to put your schedule around God because he's the center, so he will help you to get all the things done. But if you're trying to put him and add him in it, trust me, you might not get to him because your priorities is the other things that, you know, he's called you to do and equipped you to do. But if you center it around him, then the things will begin to work out. I didn't say it would get easier, but I'm saying it will work out and you'll be able to get all the things done when you put him first. And so that's something that I learned in my transition is like, keep me first. And be intentional. And God also showed me like I'm isolating you for intimacy with me. I want you to get to know me more. And so that's why you're here by yourself. And that's why I trust you to be here by yourself, because I understand that you've passed a couple tests with me. You've passed a couple things. You've seen my hand. You've seen my glory. You've seen what I can do for you. And so I trust you that when you go here, you won't leave me because you're going to know you're going to need me. And so thank you, Lord. I also am learning myself. Being and living by myself was difficult at first because I had to confront myself, live with myself, talk with myself, sit with my feelings. And sometimes that's not always cute, especially when you used to try to hide it surrounded by people. And so now God just like, nope, just me and you. Yep, I know you're feeling a little sad today. Come on, talk about it. Nope, don't call your friend. I need you to talk to me about it. And I'm just like, okay, God, like, all right, we're growing. You know, we're growing in relationship. And that's what my book talks about. We're growing in relationship with God. And right now I'm just like, okay, a new level. Like, so excited to just learn God even more. And so now I'm in this place of like self-discovery, learning how to be me for me. And so I was going through a lot of like hard things, and God was like, you know, you need to do this with me. And so I had to realize and learn how to put up boundaries and learn with people and learn like I can't always be what I am for people. Sometimes I need to be what I am for myself. Learning how to be an encourager for myself. Learning how to be a minister to myself. Learning how to be a prayer warrior, intercessor for myself. And that's not being selfish. That's just taking care of myself. Because how can I be the best for someone else and I can't be there for myself? So now like living alone, it's just great. Like I'm learning myself and I'm enjoying and like learning what I like. And yeah, and now like 6 months in the beginning, I didn't really think I had like, I don't know, like a community, I guess, in the DMV. But now like I'm at like growing in relationship with people, and I have to understand like, dang, Deja, like you just expect to move and you just expect everybody to be your inner circle friend. Like, sis, no, you just met these people and you have to discern these people. You don't be trying to, you know. So I had to learn how to be selectively vulnerable, like knowing what to share and what not to share with people that like I started working with, and like just people I met in the area, because like you're not about to just tell, we're not doing that. And so, yeah. My therapist also told me to start affirmations, and that's something that I've been working on. But yeah, I've been realizing a lot of things about myself, like how much I overthink and how sometimes I like my thoughts really will just consume me. But now I'm learning how to think, hear my thoughts, and control what stays and control what goes, right? And be able to self-affirm myself when what is going on in my mind is not lining up to what God is saying about me and what I really believe about myself. Yeah. And so now I'm gonna just like relate everything kind of like to a story in the Bible, because like sometimes when I'm going through, I like to read stories in the Bible to like learn and help me get through and navigate through. It's either you learn from the person or you do exactly what they did, you know, depending on their result. And so I wanted to give a definition of transition because that's what this video is about. So transition is the process or a period of changing from one state or condition to another. You undergo or cause to undergo a process. And so, yeah, a story that I wanted to talk about is Moses leading the Israelites from out of Egypt into the promised land. And so this is a story that came to me because there were times in my transition that I'm like, God, why did you send me here if I was going to have to go through these things over here? Like, what is this? Like, I'm thinking I'm transitioning to the promised land and everything just going to be great and milk and honey. And God is like, yeah, no. And then I just started like things that I was going through in my transition. I'm like, that devil, like I just started calling the devil out. And then I realized it's a part of the process. It's the part of transitioning, learning to adjust, overcoming different things and different trials and tests that you may face in your new place. Don't just think because God's sending you to a new place that everything is going to be perfect. No. It's time to get your faith to work because your faith got you here and the faith going to keep you here. And one thing that reminds me, like another story in the Bible first would be Abraham, because God told him to go and to a land that I'm going to show you, right? And he had all these things like, this is what I'm going to do for you, but it requires for you to go. It requires for you to leave your family. It requires for you to leave everything you know and go here to where I'm going to show you. And so Abraham just left by faith, and then he had to live in the place that God sent him by faith as well. And that's what God was showing me, like, yeah, I moved you. You got there by faith, and you believed that you was going to get here by me and I was going to maintain you here. So now you got to live here by faith, right? Because now you walking with me and you growing in me and you learning me and you trusting me. And that's another thing. One of my friends told me at my birthday, like, God sent you here to teach you how to depend on him. And I was like, okay. And it's exactly what's happening. Learning just how to trust God even when it don't make sense, when I don't see it. When I'm like, God, I thought over here was supposed to be, I think I was supposed to have everything. Like, I thought I was supposed to have my multiple streams of income by now. I'm supposed to be struggling. What is this? And God is like, it's a part of the process. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to have to keep trusting you and keep understanding that my joy don't come from these external things. It don't come from the world. These things that I get in you that's not tangible. These things come from me and they don't come from the world, which means anything or trouble that you face in the world shouldn't take them away, right? That's when you pull on me to more because you need more of it. And so, again, I wanted to talk about the Israelites really quick and how, like, God was leading the Israelites from Egypt, taking them out of Egypt into the promised land. But the promised land was also occupied with some folk. Now, I don't know how to say these names, but we're going to try. Y'all know I'll be taking notes because I'm a preacher a little bit. So it was the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, and Jebusites, and many more. Their promised land was occupied, right? The promised land was occupied, and the place that they was in was oppressing them. So, like, just imagine, God is now taking you from this place that, was like bondage, or God can just be taking you from a place that he no longer wants you because he's trying to get you here, right? So just remember, just think of anything God may have moved you from, and now you're in transition to what he promised, but there's a wilderness in the middle of those things. So like the middle is the wilderness until you get to the promised land. And so there was a part where God had delivered the Israelites, and now they walk in with Moses, and now they get to this like place of trouble. They like just experience trouble. And so first, Exodus 13:17-22 in the NLT, it says that when Pharaoh finally let the people go, God did not lead them along the main road that runs through Philistine territory, even though that was the shortest route to the promised land. God said, if the people are faced with the battle, they might change their mind and return to Egypt. So God led them in a roundabout way through the wilderness toward the Red Sea. And so this right here shows that God was basically saying, like, because the promised land was occupied, meaning in order to get to the promised land and maintain it, there was going to be a fight, right? But God was like, I'm not about to lead them straight to the promised land, because as soon as they see a fight or trouble or anything arise, they're going to want to go back to Egypt, which is comfortable for them, because even though Egypt is bondage, even though Egypt is hurting them and oppressing them, it's still better to them than waiting out the promised land and going through the process, right? And so when the Israelites was going through this, they began to complain to God and Moses. In Exodus 14:12-14, they said, didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness. But Moses told the people, don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. And so the Israelites was just basically like, we told you this was going to happen. Like, it's better to be a slave back there. It's better to stay in that comfortable place. It's better to stay in that familiar place than for you to leave me out here. God, you said you was taking me. And all these complaints is things that was coming up in my mind, but I never let them come out of my mouth. And you want to know why I didn't want them to come out of my mouth? Because I understood that I was sound just like the Israelites. And I didn't want to sound like the Israelites because their language only got them stuck in the wilderness for 40 years. It didn't get them to the promised land. Complaining and testing God and basically saying, like, God, you're not with us. Because if you was with us, you brought us out here to die. That don't even sound like the good God that you're supposed to know. And so in this time, while moving here, I'm learning to be still and know that God is God, right? So when situations arise, it's not the time to be like, oh, God abandoned me. He brought me out here to die. No, he brought me out here to get to know him and trust him and believe his word. Believe that he's a God of his word. And he would not lead me here to be like, psych. No, God has promises for me here. He has abundance for me here. He has prosperity for me here. And what I'm going through right now and the uncomfortability and not having like everything always add up and not having everything that I know is promised doesn't mean that God isn't with me. This is literally just an introduction. Sometimes God needs like opportunity. Not sometimes, he needs an opportunity in the earth to intervene. And so I'm in the right place for a miracle. I'm in the right place for God to have his way in my life just like he's done before, right? Because anytime you get a word or anytime something is God ordained, you're going to experience things that may be contradictory to what you thought it would be or feel like. But that doesn't mean that like, okay, God has left me and he's forsaken me. No, he's actually here with me. And the only way I can get through this is by knowing him and believing in him and trusting that he would not bring me here for it to be worse than what I came out of. He, like, come on, that's not the God we serve. And so like, I just wanted to really add the Israelite story in there because I realized like I didn't want to sound like them. Like I didn't want to be the person that said, oh, praising God because he got me here, gave me the car, gave me the condo, then got here and said, oh yeah, he just let me here for nothing. The devil is a lie. He let me here for purpose. He let me here for prosperity, and he let me here for abundance. He let me here to bless me. Here it is, Hebrews 10:36. It says, patient endurance is what you need now so that you will continue to do God's will. Don't throw away your confident who trust in the Lord. Yeah, that's how transition has been for me. Like what I'm doing is cool. Like I love my job and I like going to school, and I'm also approaching school in a different way because I'm understanding that like if I do want to make an impact in education, I have to take school and seriously and really read the readings and like interact in class so that I'm learning from my professors and I'm also learning from my peers and just being present. You know, sometimes we can be doing things, but we're not there mentally. We just there physically showing up. And it's like, you're not getting anything from what you're doing because you're just showing up, but you're not there. So you're not getting anything or giving. You're not putting anything to get anything out because you're just showing up, but you're not really there. And so that's something else. That's like the new approach I took to being in school. Yeah, that's transition. And learning just like how to trust God in the midst of it, even when like what you thought the prompt, like what you thought the move would look like or be, and like the different things that you're like, God, I believe that you will allow me to be a dance teacher here. I believe that I was gonna not have to struggle financially here. Like I didn't know it would be like this, but I trust you. But still I trust you because I understand that you're still with me. And like there were times where I would go to God and be like, God, can you please fix my situation? Could you please take me out of this chest? Could you please take me out of this thing I'm going through? And God would just strengthen me in it. And I'm like, God, you're responding. I feel your presence in my room. However, you're not saying what I want you to say. I asked you to take me out of it. And he said, nope, I'm going to walk with you in it to get to the other side because I'm going to deliver you. There is an end to this. But you gotta go through because there's a processing that needs to happen. And I had to understand that I'm not just no ordinary person just out here. No, I also know Jesus. And there's also things that he's called me to do spiritually that I have to be processed for. I mean, I'm training in the natural and the spiritual. Child, in May, I'm about to be a whole minister. So sometimes we gotta understand, like, where am I right now in God? Because maybe my life is supposed to be teaching me something. Like maybe what I'm going through is actually God approved, God ordained, ain't allowed. And I'm fighting it, calling out the devil. And God is like, nope, this is my processing for you. This is the way I need you to go. I know it don't make sense. I know sometimes it look like I'm not there, but I'm actually right here with you because I know you feel my presence. Just like, yeah, God, I feel your presence. I feel you strengthening me. I feel you giving me joy, peace that surpasses all understanding in the midst of some things I've been going through and just discomfort. And God's like, yep, I'm right here with you. You right where I need you to be. You right where I need you to be. Keep going, keep going. Even when things not changing, keep going, keep going. I'm just like, okay, God, like, let's go. Let's walk this thing out. And so, yeah, that's like my 6-month transition story. And this was just to show you that even when God moves you to your next place and it doesn't look like or feel like what you expected or that you wanted and it's very uncomfortable, just make sure your language don't turn into complaints. Keep your language a language of gratitude, a language of speaking what God has said, and continue just to believe that it's going to happen, that there's an end to what you're going through, right? He would not bring you this far to leave you, and he wouldn't bring you out here to die. Like, to just, he wouldn't do that. But the Israelites believed that because they didn't know God. And so when you know God and you know his ways, even when you go through pain, you won't turn your back on him because you know him. And you know that there's hope, and you have hope, and you know that your hope in him is not going to lead to disappointment because it's going to be an end to this, right? This is just for a moment. This is just a moment of suffering for glory. And so, yeah, I'm just thankful that I'm learning and I'm discovering myself and I'm becoming who God has called me to be. And that woman of God is here. And yep, she's going to show up. Oh, yeah, and at work and just everywhere, learning to show up and be me. I'm not shrinking. I belong here. I know God sent me here. I know this ain't no ordinary, just threw me in here. No. God sent me here. He placed me here for a divine purpose. And so, yeah, this is a journey to fulfilling purpose. Going with the Lord when he tells you to move and shift and it's uncomfortable. Child, just embrace the shift until the shift shifts you. So, yeah, let's keep going, y'all. Love y'all. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and continue to go with me on the journey to fulfilling purpose.